Good evening.
What's that?
Lots of
Anything.
Can you hear me?
On behalf of the Charles City branch of the American Association of University Women and the Charles City Area Chamber of Commerce, I would like to welcome you to this Floyd County Supervisor Candidate Forum. My name is Tony Noah, and I will be moderating tonight's forum. There are 3 supervisor seats to be filled on November 8th by ballot in supervisor districts. Candidates must live in the district they hope to represent, and voters will vote only for candidates running in their district. The following candidates are running for the Floyd County Board of Supervisors. District 1, which is basically the townships on the southern half of the county, plus the southwest of the river area in Charles City. Candidates are Republican Julius Brand, Independent Doug Cam, and Democrat Mark Kuhn. In District 2, which is basically the rest of Charles City, northeast of the river, Republican Dennis Kiefer, Democrat Josh Mack. In District 3, which is the northern tier of Floyd County townships, Republican Jeff Hawbaker, Democrat Jim Lundberg, Independent Jason Reiner. Mr. Reiner is not able to join us this evening, and Mr. Hawbaker is not here yet, but we still hope he will. I'd like to remind you before we get started to either turn your cell phones off or put them on stun. The 6 candidates present will each have 1 minute for introductory remarks. Following that, the candidates will have an opportunity to respond to questions. Their responses will be limited to 1 minute. Since this is a candidate forum, not a debate or press conference, questions are selected from those submitted in advance to the chamber office or those submitted in writing during tonight's forum. If you, as an audience member, would like to submit a question, please raise your hand and Mark will bring you a pencil and paper. Write the question on the paper, return it to Mark before 7:45 this evening. All questions submitted in writing will be or have been considered. The questions presented are selected on the basis of how well they cover a wide range of issues and may be combined with other questions addressing similar topics. It's long been the forum's practice that only questions that can reasonably be answered by every candidate for an office will be used. That restriction sometimes causes us to eliminate a few questions. We encourage you to pose any of those questions directly and individually to the candidates. Tonight's timekeeper is Marilee Monroe. She has signs letting the candidates know when they are nearing the end of their allotted time and when they are supposed to be done talking. We have asked the candidates to please carefully observe our time constraints tonight. Following the question and answer period, each candidate will have 1.5 minutes for closing remarks. The forum is scheduled to last for 1.5 hours. If there are no questions from the candidates, we will begin on Josh's end of the table with the candidates' opening remarks.
Thank you, Tony. So I'm Josh Mack, and I'm running. I'm Josh Mack, and I'm running for Floyd County Supervisor for District 2. So over the last 4 years, our county has seen a lot of changes. The most significant one we've seen is a $2 million increase in taxes, along with a $13.5 million that was approved by the voters in 2018. The county has several issues before them, and they include something like, what position is the county going to take on the pipelines as they come through this county? How much more time will we spend on the LEC and courthouse renovations before they are completed? And how much money have we spent on the LEC and courthouse renovations? How has this county spent the American Rescue Plan funds for all of the county for economic development. As your Floyd County Supervisor, I'll bring 18 years experience working in public entities, 18 years experience managing public budgets, 18 years managing employees at large public organizations, and I'll bring this experience along with honesty and transparency as the Floyd County Supervisor.
Good evening. My name is Jim Lundberg, and I'm a candidate for District 3, Floyd County Board of Supervisors. I'm in my 40th year of teaching high school agriculture in Floyd County and will retire this spring. When I chose to enter the race, I believe I did it for all the right reasons. Floyd County is my home. I've lived in Cedar Township for 32 years. I drive every day home on county blacktops and gravel roads. I'm a problem solver, a leader, I have a strong background in management and economics. Like many of you, I have had concerns about county government, but I believe I have a skill set that will lead us in the right direction. I think the critical areas that the newly elected supervisors will be faced with are developing a balanced budget and building up cash reserves. The supervisors need to establish a long-term plan for ambulance service in Floyd County based on the emergency medical services vote in November, the CO2 pipeline, and continuing to build economic development throughout Floyd County, including our rural areas. Thank you.
Many thanks to the Charles City Area Chamber of Commerce and the American Association of University Women for hosting this forum. It's a great opportunity for all the candidates to express their views and to meet the voters. I enjoy the opportunity to talk about all the issues that are important to Floyd County, and I believe that there are at least three. One, I think we're on the wrong track financially. I think we're raising property taxes too high, and we need to deal with fiscal responsibility in the county government. I also wonder what Floyd County will do, other than what they've done to date, regarding the county pipelines. Will we propose anything that will restrict them in any way, or will they be able to preserve the rights of property owners? And also, of course, the importance of emergency medical services is on the minds of all county residents. I've have some extensive answers to all these questions. I have a brochure over here. If you'd like to take one, you can contact me at any time regarding any county issue, and I look forward to your questions and your comments tonight. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dennis Kiefer. Thanks for coming tonight. Just a little background on myself. I grew up on a farm in Butler County, graduated from Allison Bristol High School, and then attended Nyack for 2 years. And I lived in the North Springs area for 28 years and have been over to Charles City here for about 20 years. And I'm running for county supervisor because every time I get a tax statement, it's higher. And it's becoming frustrating, and I question the way the money has been spent in some cases, and hopefully can get it under control. Thank you.
Good evening, thanks for coming. Thanks to the AW and the women for putting this on, the Chamber of Commerce. They did a great job. Well, I'm spent 90% of my life in Floyd County. My wife is back here. We raised 2 kids here. One of them's in Pella with wife and 2 grandchildren. The other one's in Altoona with wife and 2 grandchildren. So we're probably islands for good. They don't have any issues. Don't look like they're going to move anytime soon. Anyway, I'm just completing, this year would be the end of my 3rd term, and I beat myself up over the summer trying to decide whether I should run, whether I shouldn't run, and at the last minute I decided to offer some continuity to the new board that would be coming in. We have issues that we talk about, but every county has issues, and those issues will continue to come up. So we'll try our best to solve them. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks everybody for coming. My name is Julius Brand. I've lived in Charles City my entire life, 44 years. Also worked in the area the whole time. 2 years at Swartz Rocks, 21 years at Diversified Fasting Systems, where I was a supervisor, and about 4 years ago revitalized my father's tiling excavating business and been doing that full time since. I'm also the chair of the Floyd County Republican Party and worked on multiple elections throughout the county for voter registration, things like that. Wanted to bring a younger aspect to the board and maybe give a different perspective. Thanks for coming.
Thank you all for those introductions. We will get right into the questioning portion of this. The first question is, what do you believe is the most important job of a county supervisor? And we will, Julius, since we ended with you, we'll start with you, and then you'll have a minute to answer that.
I believe most important role is to oversee the functions of the county, make sure budgets are right, and watch our spending as close as possible. And when there's an issue, it needs to be addressed quickly and immediately, but it also needs to be looked at its entirety and not just try to throw money at it without researching and development on that half.
Good.
Well, the role of the supervisor is varied. The most important part of it is the budget part of it, and that consumes a lot of the year, and it's in every single week, every single meeting that we do that. The thing you want to remember about a supervisor, when you're selecting a supervisor, we are the shared managers, 3 shared managers of about a $20 million corporation with about 130 employees. So there's a lot of that management that goes on. But again, you need to watch the budget from the word go. That's the most important job. Thanks.
Mark.
The roles of the County Board of Supervisors are varied, and essentially there are 2 of them. They are the executive and the legislative branch of county government. In the executive role, they perform the duties on behalf of the county. They oversee the county's affairs, make decisions on county-wide questions. They're also the legislative branch. They can write ordinances. They can propose situations unique to Floyd County. So probably the most essential is setting the tax levy. What the Board of Supervisors do is set the tax levy for the General Services Fund and the Rural Services Fund of Floyd County. Now, both of those tax levies have been going up dramatically in the past 4 years. And I believe they need to be brought back down because a lot of people just can't afford that any longer. So by code, we set the executive level, or the legislative level, and we set the tax levies.
Jim.
I think the most important job of the supervisor is to take care of the people in the county. So you got to look at the amount of money that's being brought in and then divide it up, that pie-shaped thing that all of us have in our head. How are we going to spend that money? It's taking care of the roads, the bridges, the courthouse lately, the people that work for the county, the roads. So I really think it is about the people, and then as a supervisor, you have to make those decisions, which I think sometimes get to be very difficult, especially as we look at, again, a balanced budget and not increasing the income, but spending the money that we do have available, and how can we best take care of the people of our county without, putting anybody in jeopardy.
Dennis.
One of the most important parts, apparently, with county supervisors is fiscal responsibility. I think county officials or supervisors should concentrate on keeping the growth of local government spending within the means of what Floyd County families can afford. So many times they like to choose to spend every last tax dollar they can get their hands on. There needs to be some restraint and some fiscal responsibility.
Josh?
So as you think about the responsibility of a county supervisor, there's a lot of parts that go into being one. We've heard a lot of really positive things here. I think one that's really important is communication. How well you communicate what you're doing at the county level with the public. How well and how clear that is a very important part of what you're doing. Being responsible with the resources that you're given, not only the employee resources, but the financial responsibility and the laws that you're required to uphold are really important parts of a county supervisor. So there's lots of pieces to look at as a county supervisor.
Okay, question number 2. Floyd County has used some of its allocations of the American Rescue Plan to pay part of the cost of the Floyd County Law Enforcement Center and courthouse improvements. A significant amount of these federal funds remains to be spent. What are 2 items you may propose for the use of this funding and why? And we will start this one with Jim.
That's great. So, first of all, we've started a project. It needs to be finished. If you like what was done with the jail and the remodeling of the courthouse, you can't do the job that's half done. So I think that has to be a priority. Hopefully maybe this fiscal year it'll get done. I have no idea where they're at with that or how close to being done with it is. I've been out knocking a lot of doors, talking to a lot of people, especially in the western part of the county. I'm hearing a lot about some roads over that way, that people say we need to get some roads fixed this time of year when we're hauling grain. I talked to a lot of farmers and a lot of truckers that have brought that up. I would say the third one I've met with most of the fire departments in the county, and they've shared some needs with me. And I'm going to stop because my time's up. Thank you.
Mark?
The American Rescue Plan Act funding was really a godsend for Floyd County, local and state governments. And without it, Floyd County would be in a lot worse economic shape than they are. I approve of using the funds to complete the Law Enforcement Center courthouse project. Without it, we're either going to have to take more funds out of the general fund or raise property taxes like have been done. So we've got the project, let's finish it. Secondly, I suggested to the board on numerous occasions at board meetings that they use the remainder of the funds in ways that would reduce property taxes. In other words, instead of creating new programs and new spending, no matter how good they are, let's use them to reduce property taxes, because we are in a situation where property taxes are escalating at rates that can't be sustained. We'll get a chance at another opportunity to tell you how much they've increased over the past 4 years. Thank you.
Doug?
The project that we have going now, the LAC project, is not as over budget as everybody thinks it is. We're using some of the AARP funds for that, but if it wouldn't have been for COVID, we wouldn't have had those funds, and if it wouldn't have been for COVID, that law enforcement project would have been done a long time ago, and it wouldn't have had any problems staying within the budget. We're still, the contractors that are working on that project are still working at the prices that they bid back in 2019. So if you really want to know about that project, you need to ask about it. The other things, with the remainder of the AARP, we got 3.1 million, not quite, a little over 3 million. And there's going to be plenty of that left. And I, again, am not in favor of adding to our overhead.
Julius?
As everybody else has stated, the LAC and courthouse are probably the main one. Otherwise, I agree with Jim that looking into secondary roads, ditch cleaning, bridges, infrastructure would be a good place to look to use some of the rest of the money.
Well, I was one that questioned the use of the ARPA money initially. But like Mark indicated, if it wouldn't have been for that, financially the county would have been in worse financial shape than they are now. Sometimes I wonder if maybe some of that money shouldn't be used to upgrade our 9/11 system in Floyd County. I understand there's some need for upgrading with that, and that hasn't been taking place or hasn't been happening either. So 911 is pretty serious and important for the county.
Josh?
So one of the ways that we could use the remainder of the ARP funds is look at services across the county that have needs that have not been able to be met. So trucks, 911 system, roads and bridges that have been working but could use an upgrade, but the county has not been able to find the money to do major investments in them. So use that money to help everybody across the county have that service or road or bridge or whatever they need to help them get to work or whatever. And then the other one would be look across the county and find areas that we can do economic development that would benefit everybody who lives here. So opportunities for employment, opportunities for housing, ways to reduce taxes, things that all Floyd County citizens can benefit from.
Okay, Josh, as long as your microphone's hot, this one will start with you.
Okay.
Do you believe political parties have a place at county government level?
That's a great question, right? Because we're all sitting up here with a political party. I think that most people have a really strong interest in working together to do the right thing. Political parties aside, here in Floyd County, people care and they want to do the right thing for people who live here. There doesn't seem to be a lot of really political things happening at the county level, which is great. We seem to be very strongly working together to be able to accomplish things that benefits all of Floyd County.
Then let's go to Dennis.
What was the question again, ma'am?
Do you believe the political parties have a place in the county government?
No, I don't. I think what needs to be in county government is some common sense and using logic when making decisions. I don't think political party is that important, but it's common sense and logic is.
Doug, would you care to respond to that?
At this layer of government, there should be no politics at all. Again, I said when I started that we are the managers of a large corporation. So I'm not going to hide from you and tell you that I'm not a no party. I am a no party, but I am a Republican. I don't want to pull the wool over your eyes. That's the way I lean. There are certain things I believe and don't believe, but those beliefs do not enter into making a decision for Floyd County.
Julius?
I agree with most panel. There's no place for politics at this level of government. It should have no bearing on decisions that we have to make day to day in the runnings of the county.
And Mark?
Well, as prescribed by the Code of Iowa, county supervisor elections, as are other county elected officials, are partisan. That's the law. And so you either determine you're a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent, or no party. As far as politics, they don't play a large part in county government. However, what we need to do, and what is most important, is that we work with the people in the courthouse, regardless of their political affiliation, and we work with the other organizations and communities within Floyd County. The supervisors are elected in a partisan way, but they're the only office, not the city council, and so we need to work together for the benefit of all.
Jim?
So like everyone else, no, I don't believe it does. I don't want to follow an agenda that's been given to me. I believe in people over party, and
Thank you.
I will steal this one from my wife when she has knocked on a few doors and people ask her what party she is, and they'll say, I don't want to talk to you. And then she stops and says, can I ask you why? And when you start talking to people, when you have those conversations, we're a lot closer to each other than we ever realize we are. And I think that's one of the things we really need to overcome is, I don't think that any of us in this room tonight, I don't think our differences are that much different. And so I think we hang on to that party thing way too much. Yeah.
Okay, the next question. It's kind of a double barrel one because we had one come in from tonight that tags onto this. So I'll put both of them to you. You can answer either or both of them. How will you keep in touch with your constituents if you are elected? And how do you plan to inform the taxpayers who do not get paper and do not have internet? And we'll start with Mark.
Well, if elected county supervisor, I'll resume writing a column in official county newspapers, and I'll see that it's posted on the county website. I started doing that in 1992 when I served from 1992 to 1998. I continued it from 2010 to 2018. It's a great way to communicate with the people. They want to know what's going on, and their voices need to be heard. In fact, it's one of the reasons we're split up in 3 supervisor districts now, because Floyd County did everything possible to restrict the vote of the people to vote in 3 districts. A lot of rural residents don't think they're represented in the County Board of Supervisors, and you'd understand why. The county went against the advice of the county attorney. They practically had to be forced into a lawsuit to get to accept the vote of the people to split into 3 districts. So I'll work hard. I'll make my views known, and I'm also going door to door. I've contacted people throughout this county and will continue to do so.
Mark?
Okay, then Julius.
I'll always have an open door. I do run a business, but anytime meet me in public, I'm more than willing to answer questions. Willing to give out phone number. As far as people having access to what the board's doing, I know for sure it's available at the courthouse all day, every day, in the auditor's office.
Doug?
So I'm a unique individual. I've been in this business for 45 years and I travel this county from one end to the other. I said years ago that I was probably one of the few that had been in every section in this county, mostly because we did a lot of work for Mid-America. That being said, I know a lot of people, they go back and forth. My cell phone is published everywhere. You can call my business, you can email. All of our minutes are always posted on the website. We do everything to be transparent that we can, and it's open to everybody. I've made a great big effort this year to move our meetings from 4 o'clock to 2 o'clock to 9 o'clock, Mondays, Tuesdays. We've moved them 2 different cities. We went to North Springs. So we've made that effort, but we can't bring it to your house. You have to make the effort to come there too.
Jim?
I've been knocking doors since sometime I think early August, and I have in our District 3, it's Caldwell, Floyd, Rudd, North Springs, Rockford. So we have a lot of the smaller communities I've been knocking doors, and I've met the nicest people in the world, but they have concerns. And it doesn't take long. It takes about 5 minutes to build a relationship with someone, finding out what their needs are. And now I almost feel obligated, if I would be lucky enough, in my opinion, to get elected, I have an obligation to these people because I told them I want to represent them. And so it's very important that I keep my word and I keep those relationships that I've started to make already. So there's lots of ways, and you guys have mentioned them, having meetings, the newspaper articles. Those are ways we can do it, but to me, it's a commitment that I have to these people.
Josh?
So this question is a really important one, and it goes back to something that was asked earlier, which is what is the most important part of a county supervisor? And that's communication and transparency. And this kind of echoes that. how do we keep in touch and how do we communicate, right? We have our meetings, we have minutes and notes, but we need to do a better job of communicating to the public what's going on within the county. And that channel is wide and deep depending on how you find information in the newspaper, Facebook, online. And so working through those channels that are available to us to communicate with the residents of Floyd County is a really important thing. And then the last question you asked was, how do you reach people who don't have internet or read the newspaper? I think that's a really challenging question because it seems like they don't want to be reached. So they don't want to communicate or have out. So I'm done, thank you.
So Dennis,
As an individual, I'm not real active on social media, but I certainly would have my phone number and email address available for anyone that would want to call or talk to me or visit with them in person as well. As far as the board goes, whoever the 3 members are should continue to do a good job or maybe even a better job communicating what they're doing with the public. Sometimes their minutes are kind of hard to read, and sometimes the minutes don't really indicate what happened at the meeting. But I think there can be some improvements made in that too. So, thank you.
what effect, if any, do you think the switch from at-large seats on the Floyd County Board of Supervisors to district seats will have? And Jim, we'll start with you on that.
Great question. And at first, I don't know if I was in favor of it or against it. I mean, when this all was debated a year ago. But being in District 3, obviously, it's had a huge effect on me, talking to the people, and I understand why now. And I live up north of Floyd, you know, pretty close to the Mitchell County border. And I work in Charles City, so I have that little bit of that center of the county effect. But when you get over and you talk to the people in North Springs, you talk to people in Rockford and Rudd, I understand where they're coming from. You know, they don't always feel like they've been represented. And so I think it's good that we've gotten this out and we're getting some representation around the county, spread out a little bit. And we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I really enjoyed personally getting out and, you know, and spending a little bit more time in those towns and getting to know what their concerns are and what their needs are. So I hope if I'm elected, I can meet those needs.
Julius?
I hope it helps everybody feel more represented at the county level, but as a whole, even though we have our own voting district, we still represent the county as a whole. So in that aspect, I do travel the county a lot for business and able to get to the other candidates' districts to be able to talk to people because we do represent them as well. Moreover, people should feel better represented at the county level.
Doug?
What I've told people with the districts, to me, it really doesn't make any difference. There's, when you talk about secondary roads, that's where you might get the district come into play, but there's other counties that's been used against them. You know, you'll have one district, they got a bridge last year, so you get a bridge over here this year. When you get that kind of competition, that's not going to be good. But there's way more to Floyd County than secondary roads. There's mental health. There's 8 different budgets that you work on. So in everything else other than secondary roads, you're going to work as a whole for the county.
Mark?
I want to thank the Coalition for Better Floyd County Government for bringing the petition to the people that created the 3 districts. I've long heard that North Springs isn't represented, parts of the western part of the county are not represented, but yet we have candidates here, or we have 8 candidates total. So there is an interest. There are people who want to run for these positions. One thing that I do think might be challenging is the issue of road funding. Because you are a supervisor that represents a certain part of the county, and the county's share of funding is split up with the county engineer's recommendations by the Board of Supervisors. I've seen that happen in other counties, especially counties that have 5 districts. It's also a reason that I brought up the fact that economic development concerns about the proposed pipelines through the Avenue of the Saints Development Park. That happens to be in a district I hope to represent, and the county board had not considered that when they sent a letter to the Iowa Utilities Board.
Josh?
So, from the vote that happened last year, it's a very important thing to the county to be represented and to be in districts and have the district represented. So I think it is a really positive thing for the county to have representation that reflects the population, the interests, and the wants, desires of that district within the county. So I think it's a really positive thing.
Dennis?
I lived in North Springs for 28 years, and I can understand there were times we didn't know if we had any representation or not from Floyd County. We come over and pay our taxes and get our car licenses and stuff, but it was a question. And I did support the group's effort for the 3 different districts in the county.
Okay, the next question is, should Iowa continue to have 99 counties? And I believe we're about to start that with Dennis.
Well, do we need 99 counties? That's a good question. I think, and I may be mistaken here, but I think when they were first developed, they had to be within a 1 day's horse ride to the courthouse and back. And that's maybe why we have as many county seats as we do. I think probably in some cases it would make some sense to merge some counties with low populations and stuff like that. There is one county in northwest Iowa that's the size of 2 counties now, and that's Cassuth County. But there may be some merit in merging some counties in the future based on population.
Josh?
So I think Iowa's 99 counties, when it was developed, was the right approach. I think having local representation close to where you live and the ability to go and meet your elected officials is very important. We also have a lot of local control by having those county supervisors in each county district. So having 99 counties, I believe, is a very important thing for Iowa.
Jim?
And I agree with Josh. I think it's important, and I think especially with your local representation. However, do I think there are services that could be shared between counties? Absolutely. Maybe that's something that needs to be investigated. I surely was not prepared for that question, so I don't know if anybody else was.
Mark?
Yes, Iowa deserves and needs 99 separate counties. I served on the local government committee in the state legislature, and occasionally this issue would be brought up as a cost-saving measure, but local services are best provided by local representatives using local property tax dollars. Now, we are concerned that sometimes state doesn't fund mandates, and that is a concern. So I would say it's more of a concern from state government to keep the funding streams open to local government, because local government really knows best and has the best reasons to control its own affairs.
Doug?
Number one, the decision for 99 counties would not be up to a county supervisor. You may have an opinion on it, but that decision would be made in the legislature or the House. And if you bring that up, as you travel across and you meet supervisors from everywhere else, you'll find out how territorial Iowa is. I think that would be an uphill battle from the word go, mostly because people don't want to let go of that local control, which does help. And a perfect example of that is the master matrix. Ever since the legislature did what they did, we have heard over and over and over, turn it back to local control. So I don't think that's going to happen.
Don't know if 99 is the right number, but it works. Went to joining counties together, it'd be a reversal of what everybody voted for, and people would feel less represented having a few supervisors, say over a 4-county area. But also on that, I know there's a lot of sharing that goes on between counties for services. Floyd County used to do it with the engineer, but between that and the other services, there are still sharing agreements that can be done between counties to cut down on costs.
Okay, the next question is, what is your position on the proposed carbon pipeline projects through Floyd County? Whose decision should it be whether the pipelines go through farmland or down right-of-ways? And let's start that with Mark.
Well, I'm opposed to the use of eminent domain to acquire farmland from people who don't want to sign a permanent easement, but that's not a decision of the County Board of Supervisors, that's state law. I'm also concerned about safety concerns and the effect on future economic development in Floyd County. As I mentioned, it's going right through our prime economic development piece of property. I talked to a lot of farmers, some who have signed the easements, and they're also concerned about the tile drainage systems that are going to be eclipsed by this, by the 2 pipelines that go through Floyd County. There's 85 private parcels that will cross the Summit Pipeline alone, including bridges, roads and primary highways. And that's why I'll propose an ordinance that is used in other counties to protect private landowners and county infrastructure from damage that could be result from the proposed county pipelines.
Before we go any further, I'd like to remind you that there's just a couple minutes left for you to get your written questions in for consideration. So if you have questions, put your hand up so Mark can get your piece of paper now. Doug?
So I really haven't made up my mind on this pipeline. I don't like to ever be the first one to talk. I'd rather listen to a lot of people. And we've heard a lot of vocal people at our meetings, but I've also talked to a lot of people out in the woods, so to speak, and there's a lot of people that agree with it. You know, some people believe in climate change, global warming, climate change, and that's going to be the answer to it. But again, I don't think the decision is up to the supervisor. It's going to be made on a bigger stage than we're on. And I also believe that decision is probably already made.
Julius?
I don't believe that the decision on the pipeline is a role of the supervisors. The supervisors could form an opinion and send it to the state, but ultimately it comes down to the state to issue the permit to put it in. I do know there's a pile of concerns with tile drainage and things like that, and it happened with windmills, and everybody had a big learning experience from that. There's still issues out there, run into it yearly, doing repairs. We'll let you know. I haven't totally formed an opinion on it. I don't believe the pipeline is a viable business. It's kind of a shell game, paid for by tax dollars, but I do have an invested interest in 2 ethanol companies that will be served by this.
Jim?
First of all, I am against eminent domain for private industry, which I believe this is, so I'm totally against that. I do believe in climate change, and I do believe we have to get the CO2 thing under control. I am really starting to question if this pipeline is the answer. I don't know if it can even come close to doing what we have to do. I also realize that 57% of our corn crop in the state of Iowa goes to make ethanol, and that's a huge economic impact on our community. So we're going to have to come up with some answers in the future. So that's where I'm at with this.
Josh?
So the carbon pipeline has been a topic of discussion for quite a while, and I'm very supportive of each individual landowner making the decision for themselves on whether they want that pipeline to run through their land. So I would not support any eminent domain from the state level push down to tell landowners how they have to be. There is an opportunity that comes with those pipelines that are economic development that could have a financial impact in a positive way for Floyd County. And so that's something that hasn't really been talked about or explored. But there are also long-term things that can happen with that pipeline in the ground. Once it's here, what will happen if something happens or bursts or we have an issue? Who's responsible? There's lots of questions that we don't have answers to, but I do support economic development for Floyd County and a way for us to help increase ways to reduce taxes, but also support the landowners so that they can make a decision about what happens to their land.
Dennis?
Yes, as far as eminent domain, I don't think it's either fair or just for a money-making private company to have the power of eminent domain to go to someone's ground if the landowner is opposed to it. As far as capturing the carbon dioxide, it's a very dangerous chemical. It's more dangerous than fuel or some of the other products that are transferred by pipeline. There's over 2 million miles of pipeline in the country right now. So 800 miles probably isn't that much more, but what it's carrying and who's building it and going to own it is what concerns me.
Dennis, the next one will start with you too. What do you like best about Floyd County?
I don't know where to start. My family moved over here 20 years ago. It's been a very welcoming community. A lot of friends. It's progressive. Of course, it has a strong agricultural background, like most rural counties in Iowa do. And it's got a lot of good people in it. And we don't regret moving over here, maybe except for our taxes recently. So.
Josh?
So I'm not an original resident of Floyd County. My wife and I and our children relocated from the Twin Cities in 2016. I took an opportunity at NIAC to be their chief information officer, and we had the opportunity to live in Floyd County or Mason City or Clear Lake. But we chose Floyd County because it's a great place to live. It's got the best people you can ever find anywhere. A lot of really hardworking people who care about what's going on here. When we moved here, we were really embraced by the community. We've come and had lots of friends that we were just amazed to see how great people were. People were really engaging and want to be a part of your life. They have a real genuine interest in you. And we work in a place that kind of keeps the world running. So everybody needs food, and this county makes lots of it and makes lots of fuel for your cars. So it's a really important thing to have.
Julius?
As I said in my opening, lived here my whole life, grew up with an agricultural background, love agriculture. On the other half, most of Iowa is agriculture other than some of the bigger cities, but Floyd County is just enough urban and just enough rural to be about right. Most of my family and friends are all here. I visited 45 of the 50 states. I love to visit them, but I always come back to here. The people are nice, and you break down alongside the road, more than likely somebody you don't know is gonna stop to offer help.
Doug?
Well, number one, I like it here. We, my wife and I raised two great kids. It's a wonderful place to raise kids. It's also a wonderful place to grow old. And as I said, I have one child in Marion County, which is Pella, and one child in Polk County. And it's looking more and more and more like Floyd County is a wonderful place to retire because I'm seeing what they're paying for their taxes down there.
Mark?
The thing I like best about Floyd County is its people and the opportunities the people have in Floyd County to live a good life, raise their family. Floyd County has been my home. I've been born and raised here all my life. And serving in the legislature, I understood the characteristics unique to Floyd County. We have a good education system. Yes, it could be better. I have served as a substitute teacher since back in the 70s. In fact, last year I was there for a whole semester. Education is important to our future, and we have one here, and we have good education facilities here. We also have unique characteristics like karst topography that we have to protect. Things like our drinking water and our future are important to us. Our natural infrastructure, our roads and our bridges. And as elected county supervisor, I'll continue to do that. Thank you.
Jim?
My wife and I and our family, 2/3 of our life, 40 years, we lived in Floyd County. We always brag that it was our choice to live in Floyd County. We weren't even born here, we chose to live here. And it goes down again to schools, culture, history, the people that are amazing that live here. And finally tonight, and I didn't know this question obviously was coming up, but I was knocking some doors and right before the meeting tonight in Floyd, and it started to rain, so I said, I gotta go home and get ready. And I went over the bridge in Floyd and I looked out, and there was a bass boat and 2 people out fishing in the rain on the Cedar River. Now, how awesome is that in Floyd County? See those beautiful things. So went home, coming to town, and I don't know how many of you saw it, but the most beautiful full rainbow I've ever seen. And where else would you find that but in Floyd County? So anybody see that rainbow tonight? It's gorgeous.
Okay, you guys had to know this one was coming. We're gonna unwind this, go back and say, what do you like least about Floyd County and what would be your ideal of a proposal in order to address that problem? We'll start with Jim.
Wow. I think you give me all the hard ones to start with. It's really tough for me to think about what I don't like about Floyd County. There's things that bother me about not just Floyd County, but the state of Iowa, that I think we would work on. I think that sometimes we don't put our people first, and we make some decisions that, like the mental health care issues that are happening in Iowa right now really bother me. It's hard to find mental health care sometimes for people. I hear these stories over and over because I've knocked on doors that a family member went to the hospital, there was nowhere for them to stay. And I don't think that's not just Floyd County, that's Iowa. And being an agriculturist all my life and teaching, I always want to see a better job of soil conservation and taking care of our environment, taking care of our water. And we can't ever do a good enough job of that, so I just hope that continues.
Okay, then let's go. Let's see, who was right before you? Nobody's going to step up and volunteer. Okay, why don't we go to Dennis?
Thank you. What I don't like about Floyd County, I can't think of too much I don't like. I mean, we moved over here from North Springs. We were attracted by the school system. And like I said, we've lived here for 20 years now and don't have any intentions of going anywhere else. The folks are friendly. We've got great neighbors. Sometimes you wish you see more businesses on Main Street, maybe economic development where Main Streets are full of businesses instead of having so many empty buildings. I don't know what the answer to that is, but that would be maybe one area of improvement that would be positive.
Josh?
Living here for the last 6 years, I've had an opportunity to reflect about the different places that I've lived and what Floyd County has that is challenging. And I think one of the things that is challenging is making sure that we communicate and are transparent about what we're doing and how we're doing it. Making sure that people can get involved and engaged in events and culture and things that they want to participate in. And then working with citizens in the county to get them passionate about things that they want to see done and changed in the county. So working on those 3 things would be a real positive thing I think that we can bring to the County Board of Supervisors to help engage citizens to want to show what they want to see changed and how we can do that for them.
Mark?
The thing I least like about Floyd County is Floyd County government. Currently, I'm running for county supervisor to restore some fiscal responsibility to county government. During the last 4 years, general services tax levy set by the Board of Supervisors and paid by all Floyd County citizens, all property owners, has increased from $4.80 per thousand valuation to $5.92 per $1,000 valuation. That increased property taxes collected by $1.618 million. Floyd County's general services tax levy is considerably higher than surrounding counties, including Butler, Bramer, Cerro Gordo, Chickasaw, Howard, and Worth counties. The rural services tax levy has increased from $3.40 per thousand valuation to $3.65, increasing property taxes on rural residents an additional $530,000. You combine those two together, and that's $2.1 million in new taxes since the time I left office 4 years ago.
Julius?
Lately, the thing I dislike most about Floyd County is been hearing the discontent between the residents about the ongoing issues, biggest one being property taxes, which I also am not a huge fan of, owning quite a few hundred acres. And but an ongoing issue is the lack of a variety of retail services that we're losing to other counties because they're not offered in Charles City, be it retail, restaurant, you name it. People are leaving the county to spend their money instead of spending it here where it can be reused.
And
I guess the one thing that I can truly say I do not like about Floyd County is that we let Facebook in here years ago. It just seems like that came social media, that there's a divide between people. It's either my way or the highway. And I truly wish, and this is the state of Iowa, the United States of America, that we could come together in the middle more than we are. Forget the social media and try to get along.
why don't you keep that microphone hot, Doug? Next question will go to you. How would you see a board of supervisors in Floyd County contributing to preparing for climate change?
That's a really tough one, so maybe the carbon pipeline is the answer to that. I don't know. I have talked to people who say that is a big part of the climate change, and maybe that's the answer. We do everything when we buy equipment. You try to buy efficient stuff. You try to recycle. You try to do stuff, but we're a pretty small piece of the puzzle out here.
As a board of supervisors, of course, it needs to be looked at, as Doug said, on the buying equipment for the county and being as responsible there for emissions and stuff like that. Hot topic, the pipeline, which I am still undecided on. I don't know if it's viable. But as far as what the county supervisors are here to do, other than some rules and regulations on industry, I don't see the supervisors playing a big role in that.
Okay, and Mark?
Floyd County should and needs to do everything they can to reduce our carbon footprint. We need to use products that emit fewer emissions. Perhaps the biggest thing, we're put 13 to maybe $18 million in a new county courthouse. Were things taken into consideration at that time to reduce that? We'll see. Hopefully that building will be, when it's finished, will be something that will reduce our total amount of energy that we consume. And it's something we all have to do as a society, because I believe in climate change. And I do support, if the carbon pipelines are used, I do support that going into areas where they're not used for fracking, so they don't produce additional oil. So again, these are decisions that the county makes. So everything we can do to reduce our carbon emission is good.
Josh?
So I'm not sure how many people know that we have a landfill here in Floyd County, and they do a fantastic job of recycling. If you've ever had the opportunity to use them, they do a great job of recycling electronics, paper, waste, and do a good job of helping manage those things that will help with climate change. Instead of just putting all that stuff in the ground and burying it, they do a great job of trying to recycle it and manage that for all of Floyd County. We also have a really nice recycling station out by the fairgrounds for those rural residents. So there are things that the county is currently doing that is really helping to recycle. But one of the other things I think that would help is just to continue to have conversations around what we believe are the challenges and work with the elected officials at the state level and the federal level to share our thoughts and opinions about how we can reduce our carbon footprint. R2 ethanol plants are a huge benefit to this county. And the carbon pipeline, might be an opportunity there, but again, we have all kinds of other challenges around that have to be addressed before we can support that.
And Dennis?
Well, climate change has been occurring for millions of years. It's really nothing new. I'm not saying that there probably is something that humans aren't contributing to make it worse. But in regard to carbon, I read an article some time ago, and I'm assuming these facts are correct. The state of Iowa produces 2% of all the carbon nationwide. And our corn crop each year uses 800 million ton of carbon to grow. So we do need carbon. We can't get rid of it all, or none of us would be here. But as far as climate change, like I said, it's been changing for millions of years.
Jim?
Well, I think we also have to always look, well, how can we reinvest into our communities? And if it's using our corn and our soybean crops, we have these soybean crushing plants being built in Iowa now for the soy oil. I know that like county, state, school vehicles have to have a certain percentage of ethanol. Can we increase that amount and get away from the petroleum products? Josh brought up the landfills. I think, how we can control the landfills. And then finally, I would say, do we look at investing in solar, wind, at a county level, maybe in the future?
I'm not quite sure I understand this question, but I think it's an interesting one. Do you work with the other cities in the county, i.e. Floyd, Marble Rock, etc.? And maybe we could expand that to you as an individual, and how do you envision this Board of Supervisors working with them also, and also the city of Charles City? And for that, we will start with Josh.
So I think that's a really good question, and that kind of goes back to a topic that was brought up before, to making sure that there's representation at the county level for all the communities within this county. Having meetings in those cities, I think, is a really important step forward to show them that we want to represent them, we want to hear from those citizens who live there, and that we want to engage them to understand what their challenges are, and that they are understanding what's going on at the county level and what we're doing it and why we're doing it. There are other opportunities, I think, for economic development within the cities that the county can help provide. Housing, jobs, business expansion, I think, are all areas that we can work together on. So it would be a really strong opportunity for us to sit down and work with those cities to offer ways that we can work together to help all the citizens of Floyd County.
Okay, Dennis.
Working with the other communities in the county is just a given. I'm not sure what the Floyd County Supervisors could do as far as financial support to those cities, but we certainly want to help them with EMS, fire service, stuff like that. Probably some housing, but I guess I'm not real sure financially what the county can afford to do to help those cities, other than essential services.
Jim.
As an individual, I've spent time in all the towns, and I was trying to list all the restaurants that I've eaten at there, but Floyd's probably the most important to me because I live by Floyd and I buy my fuel and my ice cream there most of the time. Being out again, being in District 3, and having the western part of the county and meeting the people of Norris Springs and Rudd and Rockford and Rudd, Rockford, Norris Springs, Floyd, Caldwell, and seeing their needs and hearing what they need. I mean, economic development's huge to them. Norris Springs has done nothing but impress me with what they have going on over there, and I think any help our county can give them, or as the supervisors, to encourage them to do things, I think that's an awesome thing. There's some really cool industry. I mean, you go to Rudd, Hoover Hatcheries, that place just continues to expand. They're planning another big addition right now, and I mean, I think we have some of that I don't think everyone in Floyd County even realize what's happening out there sometimes. So we need to do a better job of promoting those communities and the industries and the businesses that they have going on.
And Julius.
I know currently the Board of Supervisors through services have a bunch of 28E agreements with the different communities as far as the services go, but promoting some of the other business in these smaller communities could be a thing to look at by the supervisors, and or cooperating on larger projects where there could be funding shared or grants shared from even the state or federal level to do expansion projects.
Doug?
One of the biggest effects that supervisors have on the town is the fact that we participate in area development, and I'm on that area development board. Tim Fox spends an awful lot of time. Any question a mayor of any of those towns has, he's there. The other thing is not hard, fast lines. Tim spends a lot of time with the city of Nashua, with their area development also. The other thing, there's some help in the secondary roads with some fuel things that we reimburse from state monies. So we try to be as friendly as we can wherever there's help. I do believe in the future it's going to come up real fast that the EMS and the fire service is probably going to be a county function at some time. That's going to rear its ugly head in 10 years.
And Mark?
Well, Floyd County already works with the cities throughout the county. Specifically in a official capacity, this conference board is made up of mayors of the cities, the representative from the school districts, and the county board of supervisors, and they oversee the affairs and set a budget for the assessor's office. As noted, we have worked with the Charles City Area Development Corporation, which is county-wide in their nature. We established in 1992 and still have the first city-county joint tax increment financing district in the state of Iowa. And that has brought us industry into the county, and we need to continue to do that and work with all of our counties and all of our people to provide opportunities. There's just a lot of ways we can continue to work and improve relationships between city and county government.
Julius, this one will start with you. What would be your message to a family considering leaving Floyd County for better opportunities?
I would say do your due diligence and research what you actually think is better wherever you're moving to, whether it's the services or just the atmosphere or the schools. Do your research, because the grass isn't always greener on the other side. You see a lot of families leave Floyd County and in a few years they're back. So learning is, sometimes you gotta do it the hard way, but do your due diligence to look at what you do have here and what it may or may not cost you in the long run to leave the community for something small.
Doug?
Well, as I said, I have two kids living in different parts of Iowa, and Floyd County is a really reasonable place to live. So you might want to compare those things. You may make more money someplace else, but it's going to cost you an awful lot more to live. We just had an example last week we heard of. There was a resident of Rudd that moved to South Dakota because he liked the weather out there, thought it was going to be utopia, and he's on his way back here because it's just too expensive to live. So once you figured out that it's a pretty nice place to live, you should stay here.
Mark?
Well, I would say to a family that's thinking about leaving that Floyd County needs to do the best it can to provide an adequate job, a good job, provide an education for the children, and housing. Housing is a critical issue in Charles City and all the other communities in the county. There was an initiative called the Floyd County Infrastructure Assistance Fund a few years ago that helped provide for infrastructure for housing developments. As I'm walking around Charles City, I see in other parts of the county, I see the need. There's also a need for not only elderly housing, but for single family units. And I know there's an initiative that the mayor is involved in to help with that, because if you don't have a place to live, it's going to be hard to stay here, and we need to provide new housing initiatives for all people, elderly and single family here in Floyd County.
Dennis?
I have two children that live in Floyd County and two that live in the western states, one in Idaho and one in Colorado. And I think if they were honest with me, they said they would probably wish they could come back to Floyd County. But as far as if someone's asking me or telling me that they're going to move, certainly you need to do what you think is best for your family, but certainly give it a lot of thought and don't make a hasty decision. It's not all that bad.
Josh?
So if there is a family who's considering leaving Floyd County, I guess I'd want them to internally ask themselves, what is it that this county doesn't have that you're really interested in having? And to find out if you could get behind helping us get that service, infrastructure, building, whatever it is that you believe that we are short. Because passionate citizens who want to participate in county government is really important to us. And having them become engaged and want to help make a positive change is a really important thing for everybody. So I guess I would want to understand how we could help them find a way to stay here and get what they want.
And Jim?
And I think some people are just going to leave because of jobs, family, whatever. I think what we need to do is counter that with how can we attract more people to Floyd County. And just the other night I met a young man in Rockford, and it wasn't the name that was on my list that lived there. He said he only lived there for about a year and he moved here from California. I said, wow, and so he told me a story, but his wife's family, they had family here, they came and they moved, and he moved here for a job. He said, look at this house that we live in. He goes, I would have never been able to afford this house in California. Not even close. And he said, we got good schools. He goes, my kids are safe. I said, we have something to sell in Floyd County. We really have something to sell. But I think, that's what we need to do. People are going to leave, but how do we get more people to come in? That's what we really need to focus on.
Okay, this is going to be the last question before we have our summations. So I think we'll start with Mark, and I'd like to have you tell us, just bullet point, what are your top 3 priorities as a county supervisor?
All right. We need to get our county's fiscal house in order. If we're going to create economic opportunities and attract people to Floyd County, we have to quit raising property taxes at a level that's unsustainable. They're higher than other parts of Floyd County. We need to provide for, and one topic we haven't talked about that I expected to is emergency medical services. Because as I go throughout Floyd County, this is an important topic, and it's complicated. But we absolutely need services for our citizens when they have an emergency, but it must be provided at a cost that taxpayers can afford. And also the pipelines. Farmers are worried about the damage to their tile. County roads infrastructure is endangered because it's going to take a lot to repair these things. So that's the third issue I want to work on.
Doug?
One of the obvious big ones is to get the project done, the law enforcement project done. We're going to be awful proud of that. And if we had not started that, done what we did, we would be behind the 8 ball with farming out our prisoners to other counties. So that being said, we're in pretty good shape. I would digress with Mark. I think if you compare, and you can go on my Facebook page and look, our comparisons to other counties around us is not as bad as what it sounds. You just need to look and do your research. The other thing that is going to be, and it's the EMS and the fire service, is going to be a huge thing, and that's going to be part of economic development. If we don't have these emergency services, how are we going to attract businesses here? And the thing to remember, all of these things cost money.
Julius?
Finishing the courthouse, financially responsibility on that behalf. Looking at the property taxes on ways to reduce them. And then, as the others have said, the EMS was not brought up tonight. It's also going in, or problems in communities around us. Chickasaw is dealing with it right now. It's interesting to see how they're dealing with it. And then working with other communities to help provide some of these services or agreements with the other communities for these services.
Jim?
Going back to the budget, I really think would be my #1 priority. We need to find a way to increase revenue without it being taxes. And then I think that we really need to make sure we have a solid cash fund build up that we need if there's an emergency, whatever. I think #2, the emergency, the EMS obviously is a big one. I've talked to the fire people in almost every town. That I'm hearing over and over about the 911 communication system. I think Dennis brought up earlier tonight. I'm hearing that quite often. I think that's something we're going to have to probably address in the future. I guess the third thing for me is we need to take care of our people. That has to be our priority. We need to take care of their health, their education, their safety, their recreation, and we need to promote those because I think we have something really good to sell here in Floyd County, and we want to grow Floyd County, and if we take care of our people and make them our priority, we will take care of everything.
Okay. And Dennis?
Well, one of my priorities would be to see what can be done to reduce the tax burden on family budgets. Also, I mentioned this earlier, and I agree, EMS, fire service, and the 911 system needs to be improved in some parts of the county. And I'd also, and this has been mentioned by other candidates too, but bring some fiscal responsibility to county government.
And Josh?
So the 3 things that I think are important from my perspective is fiscal responsibility within the county. How are we spending the resources that we're giving, and are we using them to the fullest capacity we can? How are we as county supervisors providing economic development across the county for every citizen, every community? And the last one is taking care of the people who live in this community, which includes services like roads and bridges, 911 and EMS, and our sheriff and other resources that are countywide, making sure that we have the proper people in place, making sure they have the right resources in place, and making sure that they're supported so that they can take care of the people who live in this county.
Okay, that was the final question. We are now ready for our 90-second summations or final appeals, or however you want to look at them. We're going to start at Julie's end of the table and move along this way. Appreciate if you stand up when you talk.
Again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Had a great turnout, a lot of interesting questions. Hope we could address them for you. If not, I'm sure we're all available afterwards to talk with. As I said, as a candidate, I'll always be open with anybody. You can give me a call, ask me my opinion. I'll be pretty straightforward with you on what I think, what I believe. Again, I don't think there should be any political rhetoric at this level of government. It shouldn't be a role. I believe our biggest responsibility is a financial responsibility of the county to do the due diligence to its residents and make sure that everybody's on a clear page as to what we're doing at a county level. Again, I thank you for coming and would like to thank you for your support.
Well, like I mentioned before, I've been a supervisor for 12 years. In the first 2 years, I lived in absolute fear that somebody was going to ask me a question because 99% of it I couldn't answer. We all talk about fiscal responsibility and we're going to get this house in order. But until you put a couple of years in to truly understand what's going on, it's hard to answer those questions. Well, I kind of figured it out. The next 8 years were a lot of fun. And then it just seems like everything hit at once. COVID seemed to be the driver of it. The last couple of years have been not so much fun, but that's the biggest reason why I decided that I would run again, to try to offer some continuity to the board, to try to help get through this. And I'll still maintain that our financial picture is not as bad as what you hear. And if you have questions, 330-1741. I'm always there. We've got to answer anything. Thanks.
Well, this is the first time I've run for any kind of office, so I'm probably not too polished. But I want to thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. The county has some challenges ahead of it, and whoever the new board of supervisors is going to have their hands full. But I also have confidence that whoever they are, that they can get it straightened out and working back in the right direction again. Thank you.
As I go door to door, meeting with voters across District 1, people often ask me, Mark, why are you running for county supervisor again? Almost everyone is concerned about higher property taxes. Many rural residents don't believe their views are being heard by the current board. I am compelled to run for county office again because the stakes couldn't be higher. We've talked today about Floyd County needing to get their fiscal house in order. It's real. People know how much their property taxes are increasing at an alarming rate compared to other counties. If we don't, our economic development will suffer because businesses and their employees won't be able to live here. We also talked tonight about the effect of the carbon pipelines, and we're not helpless. We can do things. That's why I'll propose an ordinance that other counties are using to protect landowners' rights. And citizens tell me that emergency medical services are an essential part that must be maintained, but at a cost that county taxpayers can afford. I pledge to do that. I care deeply about the future of Floyd County and have a proven record as a county supervisor in the state legislature. I'm running for office again because Floyd County needs a supervisor who knows how to say no to more spending and when to do it. Public service is very important to me. If elected, the boardroom will always be open. I ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Charles City Area Chamber of Commerce, the AUW, the fine folks who are from the Senior Center, and thank you to the other candidates who were here this evening. I would not have run if I did not want to get elected. If I did not believe I was the right person for the job, I wouldn't be up here tonight. I have a vast amount of working experience in Floyd County over the past 40 years. As a local agriculture teacher and FFA advisor, I recently completed my 40th year at the Floyd County Fair. I've worked with families from north of North Springs to south of Nashua and from Caldwell to the outskirts of Doherty. I know the roads of Floyd County, but more importantly, I know the people of Floyd County. And even though I may say I'm new to politics, this is not my first time on a Floyd County ballot. 20-some years ago, I served 2 terms as the Floyd County Soil Commissioner. I worked on projects throughout the county, including drainage ditch projects, environmental quality incentive programs, or EQIP, and I was involved in the closing of the agriculture drainage wells, many of them in the county. But the real reason I believe I am the best candidate for District 3 is because of the years of experience I have as a leader in the county, my problem-solving skills, and my ability to develop relationships with people of all walks of life. Every decision made by the County Board of Supervisors will affect someone's life in a positive or a negative way. I promise you if I'm elected, I'll remember that on every vote I take. Because that's really what this race is about, is the people. Thank you.
So we want to thank the Charles City Community's Senior Center here for hosting us tonight. It's been really great, greatly appreciated. Thank you for the Chamber of Commerce tonight for putting this together. Thank you for our audio video specialists who helped us. And thank you for the AAUW women who did the questions and the really difficult part of asking them. So I want to tell you, as I mentioned, in 2016, my wife and I moved from Minneapolis here to Floyd County, and we couldn't have made a better decision. Floyd County is a great place to live and a great place to raise your family, and that's why we chose to live here. I donate my time to local communities and invest here in Charles City and throughout Floyd County. As your Floyd County Supervisor, I'll work to lower our taxes, complete construction projects, and balance the budget. I'll work with employers within Floyd County to continue to bring jobs and company expansions to all of Floyd County. I'll work to help expand housing and employment opportunities for you and your family, and I'll be transparent about how we spend your tax dollars and work to bring economic development to all of Floyd County. I'd ask for your vote for MAC on November 8th.
This concludes our forum. The appropriate time for a round of applause. Peaceful and informative, and I'm not quite through talking yet, gentlemen. As citizens, we respect, admire, and thank all of our candidates. I think we're very fortunate to have the high caliber of candidates that we've got running for office that were here tonight with us. We enjoyed the fact that they answered the questions, and they answered them honestly and well. We also want to thank the Chamber and the AUW for putting together the forum, and DeVore for sound technology assistance, and the Charles City Senior Center for donating the use of this facility. And especially we want to thank all of you for your attention and your participation in tonight's activities. There are literature pieces over there that some of the candidates have supplied. If you would like to stop over there and pick those up, that would be fine. I believe most of the candidates are planning to stick around for a while to talk and answer questions. We are encouraging everyone to vote in the upcoming election, and we invite you to join us again tomorrow night, October 13th at 7 p.m. to meet and learn about the candidates for the Iowa House and Senate representing Floyd County. Thank you all for coming, and good night.